whether it be your Atlanta Falcons versus New Orleans Saints or Georgia versus Georgia Tech, we're going to have to stay tuned in to ATL in 60 seconds. What's your name, sir?
Hey, I'm Eric, you know what I'm saying? Hey, and I represent ATL, born and raised. I got that Georgia clay in the blood. Come on, talk to me.
Speak up, Atlanta! Speak up, Atlanta!
Give us your intake on the game today.
28-24. Who that nation we're going to represent.
That's the score you got, huh?
Yeah, man. The bigger game, we always pretty close.
Oh, you're definitely right about that. It's always pretty close. Who's your favorite player right now for your team?
I'm a Who that fan, so the whole team, but I guess it would be Kamara right now.
Gotcha. So who on the Falcons are you worried about the most?
No one.
No one, huh?
I don't have no worries.
You got no worries.
No worries. That's one thing we don't do.
Because
no
last time I checked, we had a win at this stadium here.
Yeah, you did.
Sure.
It's a new day. It's a new day, a new season.
A new day and a new season here on ATL in 60 seconds.
Vamos Atlanta!
Speak up, Atlanta, right here on ATL in 60 seconds. Hey there, Atlanta. Welcome to another episode of ATL Sports Showdown, where we give you all of your favorite showdowns from all of your Atlanta sports teams. I'm Michael Moore, your sports reporter for ATL in 60 seconds, and boy, what a week we had here in Atlanta sports. There were so many good rivalry games going on here, and so many good regular games across the board that meant a lot to these Atlanta teams. Now, of course, I gotta start out with your Atlanta Falcons, who had the New Orleans Saints up in town. You know, that's gotta be one of the biggest rivalries that go on here in Atlanta, with the New Orleans Saints marching into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This was one of the most hard-fought games for the Atlanta Falcons, without a doubt. Unfortunately, they came up short 43-37. Now, how did that happen? Well, the Matt Ryan and Julio Jones connection has been a little lacking lately, but who has been stepping up to the plate has been none other than Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, the Falcons' first overall pick in this year's draft, had the first touchdown, the second touchdown, and even the third touchdown coming in. And also scoring for your Atlanta Falcons was also Tevin Coleman with a pass from Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, of course, having the biggest game for the Falcons. He had over about, I believe, 374 passing yards, also with 5 passing touchdowns. One of the biggest games of his career this year, being able to throw that many touchdowns in the game. And this is exactly what the Falcons' offense needed. Unfortunately, the defense just wasn't able to give us that much pass rush, and they weren't able to limit the points for New Orleans Saints, as they weren't able to get another turnover or even really get a stop in order to prevent overtime from happening. Now, it isn't that surprising because they did have a lot of starters out for the Atlanta Falcons. Tack McKinley was gone. You didn't have Keanu Neal. You also didn't have Ricardo Allen. Ricardo Allen, unfortunately, right before overtime started, he got injured with a calf injury. So a lot of the players weren't able to line up correctly in order to really be prepared for New Orleans' high-powered offense. And speaking of high-powered offense, Drew Brees definitely had something to do with that, having 3 touchdowns of his own, and also having even more passing yards than Matt Ryan with 394. So unfortunately, the Falcons didn't come away with the win today. They do get to make up for it hopefully next week when they play against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, fortunately for Atlanta, there is a lot to celebrate, even though the Falcons were able to win today. For example, the Atlanta Braves have finally made it to the postseason. When was the last time we were able to see this? Not since 2013. It's been 5 years since the Braves have been into the playoffs. And the Braves were finally able to clinch over the weekend by defeating the Philadelphia Phillies. Not only defeating them, they had a sweep against the Phillies, a 4-game sweep, thanks to great pitching from Mike Foltynewicz, who was able to get that clinching game, and also a lot of great hitting from the Atlanta Braves, such as Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna, and also Nick Markakis, and so many others, Ozzie Albies. Everybody across the board has been making great plays for the Atlanta Braves, and it's only a matter of time until we see who we get to play during the playoffs to see how Atlanta will further progress. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on that for you in Atlanta in 60 seconds. Now also, the Georgia Bulldogs, once again, getting a great victory. They faced off against the Missouri Tigers. And Missouri was a team that was undefeated before playing Georgia. They hadn't scored less than 40 points before this game. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs were able to limit them to 29 points. Georgia mainly won this game based off of great defense. They had a great interception from Crowder. You even had a kickoff, or I think it was a punt return for a touchdown. Also, you had the quarterback, Jake Fromm, throw 3 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was to Calvin Ridley's brother, Riley Ridley. So you had a lot to see from the Georgia Bulldogs. Their next game is going to be against the Tennessee Volunteers. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be another SEC pack-filled action game, and we definitely can't wait for what we see from that. Now, the Braves weren't the only one to clinch another playoff win, and that was also your Atlanta United. They won the Supporter Shield Cup, and they won their division by winning their game against the Real Salt Lake City team. They had a goal from Villalba, and they also had a goal from one other player during that game in a 2-0 win. So that's another great victory for Atlanta. Hopefully they'll get a lot more done in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and hopefully be able to get a couple of games played, because I believe they had a first-round bye in this playoff now that they have clinched the playoffs now and have won the Supporters Cup, or Supporters Shield. So with that, we have already 2 Atlanta teams guaranteed to get into the playoffs. Hopefully as the season goes along for the Atlanta Falcons, they can get their playoffs hopes up. But it's the beginning of the year, so we're just going to have to wait a little while longer to see how things are going to shape up there. One other team that I almost forgot to mention was the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They played the number 3 team in the country, Clemson Tigers, and unfortunately Clemson showed why they were the number 3 team, putting up 49 points while Georgia Tech could only put up 21. A lot of turnovers involved for Georgia Tech, as Taquan Marshall, though, didn't throw any interceptions, but really didn't throw that many yards. He only threw for 29 yards, and they only had 146 yards rushing. That is not something that's very characteristic of Georgia Tech. But when you play against such a great defense in Clemson, sometimes those things kind of happen. So those are our highlights for today for Georgia sports. Make sure that you stay tuned in to ATL in 60 seconds and follow us on Instagram, on our Twitter, and on our Facebook page. Also, be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. As always, we want to know what you think, Atlanta. How do you think the Falcons are going to shape up for the rest of the season now that the defense has had so many injuries? How are they going to rebound? And can they make their way to the playoffs regardless of all those factors? And how do you think the Braves are going to shape up in these playoffs? How do you think Atlanta United is going to play in these playoffs? So many things are developing here in Atlanta, regardless of some of the wins and losses that we have seen. We're seeing these teams take a new height in terms of their playing level, so we can't wait to see what happens. As always, if you are a sports bar who is looking for a little more exposure, we want to know if we can give you some of that exposure and that we can film there, and we can have a little give and take there. And also, we always want to hear your input on how our shows go and how you think Atlanta is one of the best sports cities in the world. This is Michael Moore, your sports reporter for ATL in 60 seconds. Can't wait to see you next week.